Well, welcome to this online open event for the Masters in Literature and Arts at Oxford. Thank you very much for joining us. We are very pleased that you're interested in the MLA, and we hope that this open event will give you more insight into the programme and hopefully inspire you to apply to join us next year. This session will last an hour and will guide you through our programme. This session is being recorded so that it can be made available online, and we'll answer questions in the second half of the session, but for now you can sit back and relax. You might have come across our profiles online already. I'm Carly Watson. I'm a literature scholar. I work mostly on 18th century and Romantic literature, and I'm particularly interested in poetry and women's writing. And I teach an option on 18th century writing about nature and landscapes for the MLA. Over to you, Leah.
Thank you. So I'm Leah Clark. I'm one of the co-directors as well. I'm an art historian. I also direct the History of Art programme for the department. And my own research interests lie in the collection and exchange of art objects across the Mediterranean and actually the globe in the early modern world.
So in the next part of this session, I'll give you an overview of the MLA and its structure. I'll also talk briefly about what's on offer for MLA students from the department and the wider university, and afterwards we'll answer questions. What the MLA offers is quite distinctive. The MLA is a humanities programme distinguished by its broad scope and interdisciplinary ethos. It encompasses 4 core disciplines: history, English literature, history of art, and philosophy. The name of the programme might suggest that English literature and history of art are the main disciplines. That is not the case. The MLA is a humanities programme that offers opportunities to study all of these disciplines at an advanced level. And it's not just a programme that allows you to study more than one discipline at once. It's also a programme that encourages you to make connections between disciplines and think about how something in one field might illuminate something in another field. And I firmly believe that all that's really needed to get started with interdisciplinary study is curiosity and an ability to ask questions. I think a lot of the questions you might ask when you think about literature, art, or material objects from the past could be thought of as interdisciplinary. For example, if you're reading a 19th century novel, you might wonder who read it when it was first published. And that is a question that would lead you from literature into history. It would lead you into looking at who could read or who could afford to buy books or borrow books from libraries in the 19th century. Or you might be curious about how some of the themes of the novel were dealt with by artists in the same period. How did artists depict 19th century London, or family relationships, or the new developments of the modern world? And those are questions that would lead you from literature into art history. And these are the kinds of questions that the MLA is designed to help you pursue. And it is designed to allow you to explore disciplines that are new to you. You don't need to have studied literature before to take an option on literature. You just need to be willing to engage with different material and learn some new methods of analysis. The MLA spans over 4 centuries of history from around 1450 to 1914. And its focus is on Britain and Britain's relationships with the rest of the world during that broad historical period. We take an expansive view of British history that includes the history of the British Empire and Britain's relationships with the rest of the world. And the image on this slide is just one small snapshot of this global dimension of British history. It's a photograph taken in the 1870s of a statue of Queen Victoria at a road junction in Mumbai, India. The MLA allows you to explore Britain's interactions with other parts of the world. It allows you to examine histories of colonialism and empire alongside other facets of British history and culture. The theme of the first residence is Britain in a global context. Seminars explore a range of topics relating to Britain's relationships with other parts of the world, with a focus on the 18th and 19th centuries. And the topics currently taught are non-European travellers' encounters with Britain, Orientalism in 19th century British painting, the Crimean War and domestic responses to it, and British collectors and classical antiquities. I would like to stress that it's not guaranteed that any of the topics that I mention in this presentation will be on offer in the coming couple of years. We can't guarantee that any particular topic or option will be on offer in the coming years, but it is likely that most of these topics and options will be available. So these sessions in the first residence explore how Britain's encounters with other parts of the world, whether military, political, or cultural encounters, shaped British culture and society, particularly in the 18th and 19th centuries, and also how people from other parts of the world perceived Britain. And later in the programme, there are a number of options that offer more opportunities to explore Britain's relationships with the rest of the world. A selection of these are an option that is offered currently for Residence 3, titled Overseas Trade and the Rise of Britain as a Superpower. And that looks at British trade and colonial expansion in the 18th century. There is also an option on the British Empire and the country house that has a focus on the 19th century. And there's an option titled History, Historiography and Medievalism, the Victorians and the Crusades. And that's an option that again focuses on the 19th century and looks at the Victorian revival of the memory of the medieval Crusades in that period. I'm going to move on now to give you an overview of the structure of the programme and the timetable of teaching and assessment. The programme begins with an induction day on Friday. The next day, students are formally admitted to the university at matriculation, if this is their first Oxford degree. And the day after that, the first residence begins. The programme has 4 residences in total, and each one lasts 5 days. And the purpose of these residences is to bring students together for an intensive period of exploring topics and sharing ideas under the guidance of expert tutors. So there's a full timetable for the 5 days. Sessions usually run from around 10 till 5. Most of students' time is spent in seminars. There are core seminars in the mornings and afternoons. There's also an introductory lecture at the start of each residence. And there's a supplementary session or a series of sessions designed to bring everyone together to foster interdisciplinary discussion, or designed to reinforce study skills. And during each residence, each student also has an individual tutorial with one of the course directors to talk about their work and their progress. So there is a full timetable for these residences, but students find them immensely enriching, and there is also plenty of time for students to explore Oxford and to get to know each other as well. After each residence, I think students find themselves overflowing with ideas, and they have 6 weeks to digest those ideas into an essay on a topic related to one of the subjects covered in the residence. So after each residence, students write 1 essay. The first essay is due in early December, and it's worth 10% of a student's overall mark. Students are required to submit 4 essays, and they're each worth 10% of the final mark. And this is a fairly modest percentage, and it means that students can use these essays to explore different subjects and experiment with different approaches without having to worry too much about one less successful essay bringing down their final grade. By the time students submit their first essays, they've already embarked on the first online component of the programme, Module 1. The title of Module 1 is Studying Literary and Visual Sources, 6 19th Century Case Studies from Oxford. And this module consists of a series of units that students work through in between residencies over the course of about 6 months. And this module is designed so that students can do all their learning online. It doesn't require you to visit Oxford, and it doesn't require you to go and find material in libraries. All you need for this is a reliable internet connection. Each of the units of the module focuses on a different kind of artifact from the past, such as a building, a painting, a sculpture, or a novel. And all of them are artifacts that were created in the 19th century and that have a close connection with Oxford. So this can help you to feel connected with Oxford even when you're not here. The image on this slide is a detail of William Holman Hunt's allegorical painting of Christ, the Light of the World, which is one of the artifacts studied in Module 1. There is more than one version of this painting. The original version hangs in the chapel at Keble College, and it was such an attraction in the 19th century that the college started charging visitors to see it. This module is designed to help students develop their ability to analyze texts, images, and objects at an advanced level. And it involves a combination of independent study and participation in group discussions online via discussion forums. So students aren't expected to spend hours and hours in front of their computers without any input from others. They're asked periodically to share their thoughts on the material they look at in online discussions. And one of the course directors drops in from time to time to take part in the discussions. In February of the first year, students come back to Oxford for Residence 2, and this takes students back in time to the early modern period. And this is where students start to tailor the course to their interests. 4 options are offered for this residence, one rooted in each of the 4 core disciplines. And students take 2 options out of the 4. Ahead of each residence, students rank the options that are available in order of preference, and students are allocated 2 options based on their preferences. After the second residence, students again write 1 essay on a topic related to one of the subjects covered in the residence, and the second essay is due in early April. The next residence, Residence 3, is in the summer, and this takes students forward to the long 18th century. Those of us who specialise in the history or culture of a particular century often want to expand our territory a bit. So we 18th centuryists have expanded the century to include the period from the so-called Glorious Revolution of 1688 to the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815. And in fact, some historians have even longer 18th centuries. And as before, students take 2 options during the residence and afterwards write an essay for one of them. And the third essay is due in mid-August. The second year begins with another residence, and this is the last of the programmes for residences, and it brings students back full circle to the 19th century. And again, students write an essay after this residence. So by Christmas of the second year, students have written 4 essays, which account for 40% of their overall mark. And they only have 1 more piece of assessed work to produce, the dissertation, which is worth 60% of the final result. To help students prepare for the dissertation, there's another online module, Module 2, which runs from late November through to the spring. And this is somewhat different from Module 1. This is not a module that provides students with material to work through from week to week or unit to unit. This is a module that asks students to work both independently and collaboratively in ways that will lay the groundwork for their dissertations. One of the things students do as part of their work for Module 2 is produce the next volume of VDays. You might already have had a look at some of the volumes of VDays that are available via our webpage. If you're a classicist, and we do often have classicists on the MLA, you'll know that in Latin, VDays means you see. And we've co-opted it as an acronym that stands for Volume of Interdisciplinary Essays. I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. It's an ingenious invention of one of my predecessors as class director. VDays is an online journal produced by MLA students. Each student contributes a 3,000-word essay that showcases interdisciplinary analysis. So students are asked to choose 2 contrasting artifacts, which could be texts, images, or objects, to focus on in their essays and to analyze side by side. And each student also plays a role in the editing and production of the journal. So the VDays project is an opportunity for students to bring some of their professional skills to the task of creating a new volume of an academic journal. And a student can also use their VDays essay as the nucleus of their dissertation. It's a case study that can be used as the nucleus of a broader inquiry. Once a student has decided what they want to write their dissertation on, they are assigned a supervisor, or possibly 2 supervisors with expertise in the field. And they work with their supervisor over the course of around 5 months as they research and write their dissertation. And finally, just under 2 years after starting the program, students submit their dissertations. As all of this suggests, the MLA, like other part-time degree programs, requires a substantial commitment of time. We recommend that students plan to spend around 15 to 20 hours per week studying, and that might vary. Students might spend less time studying at quieter times on the program and more time in the run-up to a residence or in the run-up to a deadline. But like other part-time courses, the MLA is designed to have a workload that's on average around 50% of the workload of a full-time course. So we encourage you to think carefully about how you would manage your time and how you would balance the demands of the course with your other commitments. So who is the MLA for? Leah, would you like to add anything here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we often get questions about who is the typical MLA student. And I think the answer is there is no typical MLA student. And in a really exciting way, we have students of all ages and of all backgrounds who come from around the world. We have students who are coming right off of an undergraduate program. We have students who haven't done an undergraduate program since the 1980s. And everyone in between. And I think one of the really exciting things about the MLA is the conversations that happen in the room. In the Department for Continuing Education, we have, as I said, students from all different types of backgrounds. And so that creativity of difference offers, an opportunity for discussion in really interesting ways. So it's not only about learning from expert tutors and researchers at Oxford, but also from one another. And I think that's really important, particularly also the fact that there are these 4 residences that are compact, mean people can travel from around the world to attend. And so we do have a good number of international students. So I don't think that should put you off if you don't reside in the UK. And I mean, of course, it is necessary that you have an undergraduate degree. You have to have that strong interest in the humanities and interdisciplinary study. I would often advise that it's not the course for you if you're intending to work on a very narrow topic in a narrow field on a narrow century. This is a place where students come for exploration. They are interested in so many different things, and we help shape that interest in kind of interesting and complex ways, but particularly with that emphasis on interdisciplinarity.
Thank you, that's excellent. So I'd like to talk briefly before I wrap up this presentation about what MLA students can expect from the department and from the wider university. Some of you might already know the department. The Department for Continuing Education has its own library, which provides study space and offers a range of services to support students. As a student, you'll have the option of booking accommodation in Wellington Square for your stays in Oxford. Wellington Square is just around the corner from Brewley House, the department's main building, and that is where all of the MLA's teaching takes place. And the department has a graduate school, which runs a fantastic program of training sessions and social events for postgraduate students. So those sessions are open to doctoral researchers and master's students. Some of them are tailored to doctoral researchers, but there are some excellent sessions that are open to master's students on things like research, academic writing, and preparing a proposal for an application for a doctorate. And as a student on the MLA, you will be a full member of the university, and you'll have access to the extraordinary range of resources and opportunities that the university has to offer. As a matriculated postgraduate degree student, you'll become a member of one of the university's colleges. And you can find more information about colleges on the MLA's pages on the graduate admissions website. There are 6 colleges that currently accept students on the MLA. Those are Kellogg, Regent's Park, St. Catherine's, and 3 permanent private halls, Blackfriars, Campion Hall, and Wycliffe Hall. The permanent private halls have exactly the same standing in the university as the other colleges. What distinguishes them is that they were founded by Christian religious communities, and they still have close connections with those communities. They're also typically much smaller than other colleges, and they have far fewer places available for taught postgraduate students. Whilst a student, you'll have access to Oxford University's Bodleian libraries, and this includes not just access to the physical libraries in Oxford, but also access to a wealth of online resources and services. The library services here are exceptional in their breadth and range. And your Oxford University card will give you access to all sorts of other facilities and events, including colleges, lectures in various faculties and departments in the university, and research seminars. There's a very active program of research seminars and workshops across the university. Practically every day there's something interesting happening to the point where it's difficult to keep up. I'm sure you'll be aware of our application deadlines in this admissions round. The first deadline is at the end of January, on Wednesday, the 29th of January. That is the latest deadline to be considered for most university scholarships. And the second and final deadline is in early March, on Tuesday, the 4th of March. And do give yourself plenty of time to prepare your application. Remember that it can take a number of weeks to obtain all of the material that you need and to contact potential referees so that you can submit a complete application by the deadline. And you can find more information, of course, on our page on the Department for Continuing Education's website. you will already know that if you click on the red apply button on our page on the Department for Continuing Education's website, it won't take you straight to an application form. It will take you to our page on the graduate admissions website, which has some excellent guidance on how to apply, on writing a personal statement, and on what is expected in terms of written work and referees and the various components of your application. So do make sure to read that guidance carefully and make use of it. So I'm going to stop sharing my presentation now and we can turn to questions.
The first question is about having an interdisciplinary BA from around 8 years ago and no recent academic writing. Can you advise how your short courses work and how we would use this work to support an application for this program? Thank you. I could speak to this one, particularly about the short courses. We do have a lot of our students who might take one of our summer schools or a short course where this is a really good opportunity to present and write a short piece of work that you get some feedback on, and that a tutor can also write as a reference for you. But it also gives us an idea of your level and your ability to come on to the MLA. So I think the short courses could be really useful. If you want to look more about the short courses, I can, we have them from all different disciplines in the department. So whether you want to do an English literature short course or an art history short course, if you basically just Google short courses and continuing education Oxford, there'll be a long list. I mean, we've got hundreds that are offered every year, so that there's lots of choice there. But it can be a really good, useful kind of pathway onto the MLA if you feel like you want to have some more kind of recent writing. The next question is regarding the residencies. How are the dates decided? I work and I am concerned about my ability to attend with work commitments. Do you want to answer that one, Carly?
Yes, so we have the dates for 2025 to 27 decided already. So if you write to the email address on the last slide, so mla@conted.ox.ac.uk, then Claire can let you know the dates for the residences in the upcoming run of the programme.
The next question is, do you consider applications from non-graduates with relevant experience, research policy, etc.?
So we do have a requirement of an undergraduate degree. So that is a fixed requirement. As this is a postgraduate program, applicants need to have an undergraduate degree to be considered.
The next question is on the other side. So it says, when you say the master's is for undergraduates, you mean it's not available for those who have already graduated and have a PhD in English in another country? Thanks for your reply. So I think the opposite would be, actually, we have loads of people who come from a variety of different experiences, have PhDs, who do come on to the program. I think it's more about why you're coming onto the program and your interest in the subjects and interdisciplinarity and why you would be coming onto the program. But absolutely, we're not going to not accept you because you have a PhD. The next one is, would someone with a degree in music be considered for admission? Do you want to answer on that, Carly? I'll just start looking at the other ones.
Yes, the answer is yes. We would certainly consider an applicant with a degree in music. And we would be interested to know more about your interests in other disciplines and whether you are perhaps interested in connections between music and any of the core disciplines of the MLA.
The next one is it possible? Oh, sorry, the question just jumped there. Is it possible to complete the course whilst largely avoiding the study of creative literature, i.e. novels, poetry, plays?
So it's not possible to avoid the study of literature entirely. There is, as I mentioned in my presentation, one of the units of Module 1 that focuses on the poetry of Gerard Manley Hopkins. There are another couple of units that focus on one of Thomas Hardy's novels. Looking beyond that, it would certainly be possible to rank the options for each residence in a way that puts the option that's focused on literature at the bottom each time, but we can't guarantee that students are allocated to their top two choices of options. And we do encourage students to look beyond the subjects and the disciplines that they are familiar with and to explore less familiar areas. And I think that trying to complete the program while avoiding one of the four core disciplines would close down some avenues for interdisciplinary exploration that might be very fruitful. And in fact, many students who, in the course of their study, discover new interests, which sometimes they go on to study further in the future. Sometimes students discover an interest that they go on to develop into a doctoral research proposal and a doctoral thesis.
The next one is regarding the dissertation or the other essays, are we able to focus on more contemporary issues if it's through an interdisciplinary lens and grounded in historical theories, example in issues such as societal reactions to AI art?
That's interesting. The work needs to be grounded in analysis of historical material. So it is possible to approach that historical material through a modern lens, through concepts or issues that have been developed more recently than the chronological span of the MLA. It's not possible to do the opposite. So it's not possible to take historical issues or concepts and apply them to modern material. The focus has to be on an examination of aspects of the history and culture of Britain.
I mean, I think the only way you might want to do it is if you flipped it. So if you thought about what were early modern or 19th century, 18th century versions of AI, what kind of technologies were people worried about as replacing humans? So there may be that's been, but yeah, I think you've answered that question. Oh, this is a tough one. How competitive is the application process? Roughly how many applicants per place?
Well, there is an average of application numbers over the past 3 years on the graduate admissions website. So the 3-year average application number is 58. So roughly there are almost 2 applications per place.
The next one is about how many scholarships are typically allocated to the Department for Continuing Education. I don't think we have those answers, do we? Unless you
No,
know
we
both.
don't have a specific allocation of scholarships. Many scholarships are considered centrally rather than by the department.
The next one is about the selection criteria for selecting students. I guess that's about kind of admission, the same.
Yeah, there's very detailed guidance on this on the graduate admissions website that has details of our entry requirements and also, as I mentioned, excellent guidance on how to approach writing a personal statement, selecting written work for the applications and choosing referees.
The next one is about if you get your MST, do you have a graduation ceremony, and are you then do you have an alumnus card for life from the university?
Yes, you do have a graduation ceremony. You book it through your college. The college handles graduations. And as an alumnus or alumna of the university, you do have an alumni card and you are part of the alumni community.
Previous academic experiences from more than 8 years ago, what would be most helpful to include in professional references? I think there's a bit of a spelling error here, so I'm just trying to, will this put the application at a disadvantage?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do understand that sometimes it is not possible to obtain a full set of academic references or even a majority of academic references because of your education history. I think it would be a good idea to Again, consult the guidance on the graduate admissions website, but also to ask your referees to think about the kinds of skills that might be most useful to you in academic study. So proficiency in written communication would be a good one, research skills, anything that might be relevant to academic study.
The next one's about financial aid. Where would they go for that?
There is a lot of information about fees and funding on the university website. There's also a fees and funding search portal where you can enter information about the course that you're interested in, and it will tell you what opportunities are available for financial assistance.
Okay, so there's quite a lot of questions and they keep growing, more than 50, so we might not be able to get through these all, but we will try. I think some of these are repeated as well, so if I don't ask your question, it's because we've already answered it. When selecting a college, if you're accepted by the department, but you don't get a place at the college you have selected on the application, will you be allocated a place at another college?
Yes.
I've lived in the UK for years, have permanent residency, have completed a master's degree in the country already. Do I still need to take a language test?
That is, there may be a justification for a waiver, but that will be decided on a case-by-case basis.
Sorry. I don't have any academic referees. What would you recommend? I think you've answered a similar question, haven't you?
Yeah, anyone who can comment on relevant skills. So that might be someone you know from a professional context. It might be someone you know from a volunteering context.
Okay, so the next one, there's a couple of related questions, so I'm going to ask both of them. One, some of them are already thinking about dissertation topics, so you're well ahead of the game here. Are they permitted to reach out to relevant faculty? Is there a list of supervisors? Also, what is the process for assigning a supervisor? If I want to work on something, there's no specialist in the area, is it still possible?
So this doesn't work in quite the same way as applying for a doctoral program. You're not expected before putting in an application to reach out to a potential supervisor. When you come to thinking about your dissertation at that point in the program, then you would have a conversation with one of us about your interests, and we would work to find you a supervisor.
So I'm answering some by.
Yeah.
I just completed an MSD in history at Edinburgh. Does this help my application, or is it mostly based on my BA?
No, we take into account all qualifications.
Yeah. I think it's the same as what we just said earlier. So
Yeah.
are you able to talk about the interview application process?
There is some information about interviews and what you can expect from the interview process on the graduate admissions website.
You mentioned this just now about the potential for DPhils and things like that. So the question is around pathway into PhD study.
Yeah, there isn't an automatic or a sort of privileged pathway from the MLA to doctoral study. We do have a sister program, the DPhil in Literature and Arts. Again, you can find more information about that on the department's website. Graduates of the MLA need to apply for the DLA in the same way as any other applicant, and their applications are considered in the same way. A crucial factor that determines the success of a DLA application, and indeed any application to any doctoral program, is the availability of a supervisor who is able to supervise the project.
So we've had a few people asking specifics about their degrees and if they've got an undergraduate degree in psychology or fine art. I think the main thing is you've had the undergraduate degree, so that's great. What we want to see is your ability and interest in engaging with humanities subjects. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Carly.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the written work as well is your opportunity to show off your critical skills and your ability to um, produce a piece of writing, a critical piece of writing about um, literature or art or philosophy or culture more broadly, or to construct an argument about history. So do consider carefully when you're choosing your written work.
Sorry, I'm just there's another DPhil program. So doing this master's is the equivalent of any other master's in any other institution. So you would require
Yes.
it's okay, sorry, just cancel. I'm trying to get through these. Do you have any advice on where to obtain guidance on what to say and how to present the chosen text object building in the presentation for the interview?
We don't have any specific guidance at this stage. We provide a bit more guidance in invitations to interview, but that's not something that you need to worry about at this stage. We ask for a short presentation in the interview, and then we move on to asking other questions.
Sorry, I'm just answering some of these by typing. Such a range of scope of subjects looks great. How do tutors teach in terms of comparative subjects such as painting and a novel? Are they taught by different departments or together?
So there are, as you say, a range of options taught by different tutors. Different tutors have somewhat different approaches to teaching. Quite a lot of tutors are very interested in making connections between material from one discipline and material from other disciplines. So there is no fixed template or consistent method across the team of tutors. There's a diversity of approaches, and tutors are very interested in making connections beyond their specific field.
So there's been quite a lot of questions about the specifics of the application. And so I would urge you to do your research, as we will urge you to do on the MLA, and just read our website, but also it will link you to the graduate admissions website where all that information is provided, so that it is there and it's ready for you to read. There's a question again about contemporary issues. So could you examine the way that, for instance, the Byronic hero has impacted literature since, or would you only be able to study the impact of this up to 1914, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. You would need to focus on the period before 1914.
I think it might just be worthwhile saying that this is a historic master's program. So if you're interested in contemporary issues, it might just not be the right fit, because a lot of the material is history based.
That's right. Yeah, it is a program that focuses on British history and culture before the 20th century.
Okay, we've got what preparation is expected for each residence and how large are the seminar groups in the residencies?
So what preparation is expected? A certain amount of reading is expected before each residence. It's difficult to quantify, but usually students have around a month, I would say, around a month's worth of time built into the program in advance of each residence that they can use to concentrate on preparatory reading for the residence.
So one question is about, I have a degree in English literature. Would it be advisable to complete an art history short course before beginning the course in order to make the most of the learning opportunities? I mean, I think the course is designed with the idea that people are coming from usually a disciplinary background, but your ability to be open to new different disciplines is important. If it's been some time and you feel like you need a little bit more of, let's say, some art historical background, then you could apply for a short course and do that. Don't know if you want to add anything, Carly.
Just that it's not a requirement at all, but if you find a short course that you think you'd enjoy and that would be interesting, then we would absolutely encourage you to do that.
Pathways onwards from the MLA, what have graduates gone on to do?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because many of our students, as you mentioned, Leah, already have careers that they're well established in, or they have retired from very successful careers and are undertaking the program for enjoyment and for a new challenge. So we can't talk about graduate destinations in quite the same way as a full-time program which recruits mostly younger students. But quite a few of our students have gone on to further study at doctoral level, not just at Oxford, but also at lots of other universities as well. And many have continued in their careers.
So the next question is about application deadlines, and particularly because the student wanted to do 2 short courses, but for reasons couldn't do them this term, which means when they complete the 2 short courses they're doing will be after the deadlines. So would the suggestion be that they wait until the next deadline of January 2026, or that they just set their own questions and write 2 essays for the application?
I think that is certainly an option. It is something that applicants have done very successfully in the past. So I think it's a case of what you think is the right thing for you at this point. It is certainly possible to produce examples of your own academic writing outside of the framework of a short course or a degree course, and to submit them as part of the application.
Some of these are repeat questions, so I'm just skipping
Yeah.
them. Did we add a reading list for each of the disciplines on the MLA program? You will have a preliminary reading list where we do separate them, kind of primers for each. The other one is asking about finding a tutor to act as a referee for you, and taking a short course rather than risk having a poor referee on your application.
I think this is probably a decision that only you can make. That is one of the advantages of doing a short course, is that it might allow you to call on the tutor to be a referee for you.
I mean, I think the only other thing I would say is that we put emphasis on various aspects of the application process and the interview. So the written application is important, the referees are important, and so is the interview. So all those things add up to get you a place or not on the course. So one, sometimes one tiny thing is not necessarily going to set you off. So yeah. You don't need to be have external funding to make you competitive. We don't take that into account for the application. Can you provide any examples of past dissertation titles? One thing I would urge you to do is actually to go onto VDays and look through previous VDays essays, because those are usually the starting point for for dissertations, and they give you a real flavor, but also quite an easier read than trying to read through a longer work. But I don't know if you want to say anything, Carly.
No, I think that's a great recommendation. Yeah, yeah.
So the residences sound fantastic whilst quite intense. What happens if you were to miss a residence due to poor health, for example? And I think this is a really important aspect that we haven't totally talked about, but we, the course directors, as well as the administration team, are there to support you through your journey. And a lot of our students have complicated lives. They may be carers, they may be working full time. There are numerous reasons why you might miss a deadline and things like that. So it is a supportive environment that we're trying to, do whatever we can to support you to get through the program. And there are times when students might need to suspend. So that means that they have to, they stop their studies for a bit and come back, and that happens often enough that it isn't, a complete rarity. So that's always an option, and I think that's important to understand. We are a Department for Continuing Education. We realize people have complex lives. Do you want to answer if they, would they miss the whole residence? I think is a bit of a. Do you want to answer that, Carly? I don't know.
Yeah, there are a couple of options, which of course we would discuss in more detail if you were on the program. It might be possible to arrange for remote access to some or all of a residence, but there would also be the option, as Leah mentioned, of suspending studies, effectively taking a break, stopping the clock, and then coming back and picking up where you left off at a later time.
I was just trying to write another one. Oh, thank you so much for answering your questions. No problem. Thanks for all your help. Is there a suggested reading list on interdisciplinary, it was ID, interdisciplinary studies for interested applicants?
We do have some recommendations that we make available to offer holders in advance of the program. A couple of books that we recommend are the Oxford Handbook of Interdisciplinarity, which is a very large a very useful collection of essays on various forms of interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary work. Also, Joe Moran's book on interdisciplinarity is a good place to start.
Are admissions rolling or are applicants notified of status simultaneously?
So we have the two deadlines, and so we notify applicants who've applied by the January deadline earlier than applicants who've applied by the March deadline.
I'm answering this question slightly by typing, but actually, now that I've typed it, I think it's probably a good one to answer. So how does a program prepare graduates for careers or further studies in literature and arts? And I think this is really key because of its interdisciplinary nature. There's numerous directions that you can go into. I mean, there's obviously the main things about kind of research skills and study skills and all those things that can be applicable in a variety of different pathways, whether that's academic. But I also think we've had some students who've gone on to be, curators at National Trust properties and things like that. And I think the interdisciplinary nature of the program really helps with those sorts of kind of heritage pathways because of collections often include books, libraries, paintings, material culture, all those sorts of things. So I think it prepares you for a number of different directions.
I think that's it. And of course, there are opportunities that the broader university offers that you could take advantage of if you're interested in particular pathways. So there's the careers service, of course, but there are different research clusters and communities within the university that you might be able to connect with or take part in if you're interested in taking a particular pathway in future.
Is the cost of fees for Irish students the overseas one or the regular one? That's one that we don't answer fee questions. So do direct yourself to the graduate admissions website. And if you have any particular questions, there will be an email for you to answer there. How approachable are admissions staff in terms of discussing interview process? It's been a while since I attended such an interview. I imagine it to be extremely challenging. I would say that whether it's Carly and me or Carly or one of us and somebody else, it's about a conversation. So I think we prefer when candidates feel at ease, and we try to make that interview process a conversation about your past and your experience. And so I think not thinking about it as a test, but a conversation is probably the best way to approach it.
Yeah, and we're really keen in interviews to get to know more about you and your interests and what has drawn you to this program and what aspects of the program you might be particularly interested in. So that's one of the important functions of an interview for us to get to know you and your interests a bit better.
So there's a question about when will candidates be notified whether they've been successful. The other thing I keep forgetting to mention is I would encourage you, if you can, to try to apply for the earliest deadline, just because, well, it means it gets off your, off your computer and you've done it. But I think we do get a lot of applications, so it's great if you can get them in as early as possible. But notification, there's a long administrative process. But what is it, usually a few weeks?
It depends on the deadline you apply by. Of course, the first stage would be an invitation to interview, and then the next step would be a notification of whether or not you've been successful. It would be by early April, I think, at the latest, for both deadlines. For the if you applied by the January deadline, it would be sometime in March.
So someone missed the beginning and our introduction. So what are our specialisms and areas of interest? Before we answer, I just thought it would be also useful to say, I know that Carly spoke about how the options for the residences change depending on tutor availability and things. Course directors also depend on that, whether people are going on sabbatical or whether they're around or being, moved around the department. So it's likely that it will be either me or Carly, but it may be someone else within the department. So those specialisms might change. But do you want to go first, Carly?
Yes, so I'm a literature scholar. I work mostly on 18th century and Romantic literature. I teach an option on 18th century writing about nature and landscapes on the MLA. And I'm particularly interested in women's writing and poetry. I'm working on the relationships between poetry and geography in the Romantic period at the moment.
And I'm an art historian. So my own specialism is in collecting and the exchange of objects in the early modern world. So I was trained as an Italian Renaissance specialist, but I'm broadening that out to kind of global collections and the circulation of objects. So yeah. So I'm just there's a couple more questions keep coming in and we've got 2 minutes. So I think we're going to have to stop getting any new questions because we're going to go over time, but we've got some thank yous as well. Do places fill up as the time goes on? Do you have more chance of a place if you apply by the first deadline?
We are careful not to make all of our offers in the first round of applications from the first deadline. So it's not that there is a chance that all of the offers will have gone by the time the March deadline comes around.
And then finally, are there additional academic opportunities for students in the program who want to stay longer in Oxford beyond the residences? Absolutely. As Carly said, there's so much going on that actually, and also because the residences are quite intense, it's hard to fit in a lot of the other things. Although the cohort that I have this year are particularly good at trying to fit in everything from, organizing operatic tours to punting to various things within that residence. But I also think a lot of people, if they're traveling from further afield, but even those based in the UK, find it useful to come sometimes a little bit earlier to be able to access collections and kind of, just make use of being in Oxford. And some stay afterwards as well when they've kind of got a topic for their essay. They think, well, they might as well make use of that. But there's so much on offer. Other people sometimes do the residence and then they book, another 2 or 3 days to come. Again, that depends on where you are in the world. If you're a train ride away, that's much easier. But I would definitely suggest trying to make the most of, as she said, having that golden ticket of a student card that gets you into various things like colleges. I think that's it. We answered almost 80 questions. So that's in 30 minutes. It's not bad, is it?
Thank you so much for the questions. I hope this has added to your knowledge of the program and given you some insight and perhaps inspired you to get on with putting together your application for next year.
We look forward to seeing you in interview for those of you who are successful in getting to that point.